Welcome back for this third and last installation of docks. For those of you that have made it to video 3, well done. It's and even well done to me for making it to video 3. I didn't think I would make it. Again, guys, a lot of information to take in, but good, valuable information to store and keep back there. And now you've got it forever on YouTube. You can always go back and refer to it. Enjoy part 3. That's the bait fish. As far as crawdads and crabs and things like that, they don't really care. I've stood on Fran's dock, Brother Fran in Minnesota's dock, at midday on the end of his dock, which looks a lot like that piece there, and watch the crawdads crawling around on the rock bottom here. Big craws, that size, just crawling around randomly on the bottom there. So whether they've got a death wish or they're not scared of the smallies and largies in that particular part of the lake, I don't know, but those craws don't seem to give a damn. Okay, but most of the time those craws would be living anywhere where there is sufficient structure, in this particular case, to keep them interested. Right. And good. So that is the full sun, or the sun moving onto the dock period of the day. We're only going to concern ourselves in this particular case with 3 periods of the day. First light, balance of the day when the sun gets over the dock, and last light again when the fish will move to the front of the structure, which in this case is a dock. Okay, good stuff. We are going to keep it simple for time of day, guys. You don't need to complicate it when you are learning to fish docks. We are not, in this case, talking about specific lakes with specific types of bait fish in them, etc., etc., etc. We are talking about docks. Good. And let's talk about time of year. Sip of tea first. Okay. Time of year. In my experience, fishing quite a few different states in America, I have found that you can catch bass out from under docks at most times of the year, as long as the prerequisites that we have discussed are in play. In the heat of the summer, you can catch bass off docks if there is sufficient deep water relative to the depth of the water surrounding the docks. You will catch bass off them. The best times, in my opinion, for catching bass from under docks are late summer into the fall, and sometimes right into the winter in the south. The fish will still stay around docks. In the north, as we discussed, the docks get pulled. And early pre-spawn into the spawn. After the spawn, after the males have stopped fire guarding, they seem to move away from the docks for a period of time. I assume that's R&R, time for them to rest and recuperate. Once that happens, they will move back under the docks and they will start using them as their homes again. A lot of the time, what you find during the spawn is that, especially on docks that run from deeper water to the bank. In other words, docks that are not on super shallow lakes, that the fish will congregate on the shallowest part of the dock during the spawn. So pre-spawn, you will find them on the deeper ends of the deeper docks, and then they will move shallower gradually as it becomes more, as the spawn intensifies. On docks that are shallow all year round, in other words, let's just say there's four feet of water under the dock all year round. Those fish may well spawn all around the docks. It's just something that you need to bear in mind, guys. Okay. They will make use of any piece of hard, in this case, structure, because the majority of these docks in the south don't get pulled. So where the posts go to the bottom, there may be concrete on the bottom, concrete blocks on the bottom holding the posts, or whatever the case is. They will spawn on top of the feet of the posts or the legs of the dock. Hard areas, if the dock is on a gravelly bank close to the land, they will spawn all around it. One of my ninja tricks, which I always love to do, if you have a shallow dock and there is a boat lift, or the boat is parked normally on the end of the dock where the outboard motor is underneath the propeller, that normally creates an area of clean bottom from the propeller, and bass will actually spawn in that hole under the propeller. I have seen it and caught them out of there. I don't know how many times. It's just one of those strange things. They do it because the propeller cleans the bottom and they make a nest on that clean patch of gravel or sand or whatever the case might be. Good. I think that the bass will congregate more late summer going into the fall, right through the fall and early part of the winter, because a lot of the other cover that might be in the lakes, let's say weed beds and grasses and stuff, start to die away. Not always, sometimes. And remember, guys, there's a lot of times where you'll go approach docks where there'll be weeds growing between the docks, and sometimes right underneath the docks if it's very clear water on a lake. Okay, and what that does is it helps to congregate the bait fish because they have nowhere else to go. So it's just something to bear in mind. Good. So now that we understand time of day, time of year, things like that, let's talk about how we approach a dock. Now that is very relevant to clarity of water and time of day. Guys, I know this is a lot. Bear with me, okay? You guys asked for this. You're getting the full version. If you live in a lake that has stained to clear water, when you approach a dock first thing in the morning, do not drive up to the dock, stop your boat, put your trolling motor in the water and start fishing. Stop the boat a ways back. In fact, guys, even in lakes where the water is stained to dirty, just follow the same rule and it'll stand you in good stead. Stop your boat 4 or 5 boat lengths off the dock, more if the water is super clear. Then put your sneaker motor or your trolling motor in the water. Get all your crap sorted out on the boat that you need to out here away from the dock. Because again, we may not know that there might be a brush pile here or whatever the case might be. Then approach the dock quietly on the trolling motor. Use that as a rule of thumb, guys. Clean water, dirty water makes no difference. And do that at all times of the day. First light, midday, last light. Use that as your rule of thumb. Approach the dock quietly. If you just ride up to a dock, make lots of banging in your boat, getting baits out of the boxes in your storage compartments, pulling rods out, whatever. All that vibration, not necessarily the sound, the vibration from you doing those things on your boat will push those fish either further under the dock where you can't access them or away from the dock because they get such a fright. So let's just use that. Be careful when approaching docks, guys, but especially careful in lakes that are stained to clear water clarity. Good. Okay, I'm now going to explain how I approach a dock with the various types of lures. And again, I'm going to generalize. First light and last light, if I am dock fishing, one of my absolute favorite things to do is to fish top water around the dock, as close as possible parallel to the edges of the dock and the fronts of the dock. So I like to throw things like poppers, walking baits, propeller baits, which we haven't covered yet, but we'll get into it, and even a frog. Frogs, particularly in the case where you have weed growth around or underneath the docks. That is my first approach when I approach a dock. You will know very quickly whether you're going to have a topwater bite at first light or last light on a dock. It will not take long. We've discussed how you would approach the dock, that kind of stuff. And you start firing that topwater bait down the edges of the dock like that, and if you've got enough room between the bottom of the dock and the water, and you're a really good caster, unlike me, even underneath that dock, to draw fish out from underneath it that may be sitting underneath the dock. That first light and last light, generally speaking, you'll be able to draw fish out from underneath the dock if you start paralleling the edges of the docks. Time of year will dictate how fast you want to move that bait. So let us say in the cooler months of the year, start off slowly. So start your retrieve slower, and then work up to a faster retrieve. And in the warmer months of the year, you can just kick it off straight away with a faster retrieve straight away out of the gate. And the reason for that is, guys, fish are cold-blooded, so they need the warmth of the sun to speed up their metabolisms, get their blood warmed up, and allow them to chase baits. So first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening, when their blood starts to cool down, and again, we're talking about the cooler months of the year here, you may need to slow your retrieves and then gradually speed up until you find the speed that you like, or that they like. In the warmer months of the year, when the water is warm, and when we say warm, I'm going to say anything over 70 degrees, or let's even 65 degrees. When the water gets above 65 degrees Fahrenheit, they will chase a lot harder. So that would be my initial approach for first and last light. My next approach is always the same. It's a 1-2 punch. Either a weightless or very lightly weighted Senko or soft jerkbait. Right throughout the day. That will be my next approach. Fish that around, anywhere around where you can get it in, with as good as you are at casting. Anywhere you can get that bait, get those baits in there. And then my final approach would be a Texas rigged creature or a craw of some kind, or a jig. Now, the depth of water on the end of the docks, over here in particular, the main structure of the dock, the deeper the water that you have under those docks, and in some lakes, guys, there's so much depth to it that there is not legs on the ends of the docks. The docks are actually floating because it's that deep. That will determine what the size of your weight is that you are going to use to sink your bait. If you do not have structure on the ends of the docks, then you will probably be better off using moving baits. Something like a crankbait, a jerkbait, a swim jig, spinnerbait, something in out of those categories. Moving baits, because there's nothing to obstruct. In other words, you could park your boat over here, throw across the point of this dock, move your boat round, and literally drag the lure underneath the dock. Because the only thing that would be underneath those docks then would be the floats. And that's what would be holding the fish there. The bait fish may be attracted to that, and the bass may be hanging underneath the dock, ambushing the bait fish. In normal situations, where you have these legs here, could you use the moving baits? Yes, absolutely you could. Your casts would need to be super accurate so that you don't hang up every second cast. So, the first approach, top water, then weightless baits, then a weighted bait of some kind. If you are blessed where you've got a mixture of a floating dock and one that is anchored to the bottom, go for your badge, throw everything at it. In lakes where crawdads are more prevalent, how do we know this? If you go back to the beginning of this channel, there is videos there that will help you find out what food sources are in your home lake. The best approach to the majority of the docks in your lake would be a Texas rigged creature or craw of some kind, or a jig. As the weather starts to cool, the jig will become more prevalent, and then you could also add a drop shot to your arsenal. You could drop shot a craw if you wanted to, but the majority of the time was some type of finesse worm. In lakes that have a lot of spotted bass in them, the drop shot will play most of the time. I'm not saying you won't catch other species of bass on it, you absolutely will, but it's just that is a good choice for lakes that have high concentrations of spotted bass. As the seasons progress and it gets colder and colder and colder, the jig becomes more and more prevalent. Any kind of jig, guys, whatever your favorite kind of jig is, but preferably some form of pitching jig so that you can get under the dock if you're skilled enough to do it. Dressed with a craw type trailer is going to get you bit time and time again on docks, regardless of where they are in the country, whether the north or the south. It is going to get you bit. It's that thing that we always talk about where we say in the cooler months, throw baits that look like crawdads. They will work absolutely throughout the summer, but for some reason, in the cooler months of the year, whether pre-spawn or late fall going into the winter, they just seem to dominate for this type of fishing. Good. So what we have learned from this chapter about what baits to use under docks is, and again, it is confusing. You can pretty much throw anything that you like at a dock that you can get away with. If you are uncomfortable pitching baits to docks, but you like to throw a drop shot, throw the drop shot. If you like to crank with a square-bill crankbait and your casting is accurate and you can get it to bang off these posts, or your casting is so good you can actually get it deep underneath the docks in the full sun, throw the square-bill crankbait, guys. If you love to throw a jerkbait, twitch your jerkbaits down the sides of the docks, particularly in cold, clear lakes. It works like a bomb. But if you just want to go to a dock with one bait, take the bait that you are most comfortable with and throw that bait at the dock. When you are learning to fish docks, so let's say For example, if you would normally like to throw a lizard on a Carolina rig on your home lake, and you've never fished a dock, and you want to go and fish a dock, take that lizard, put a small Texas rig, quarter to 3/8 ounce Texas rig sinker, bullet sinker, on the nose of the lizard, peg it, and fish that same lizard, crawl it along the bottom around the docks. Although you can fish a Carolina rig around a dock, particularly if you shorten it up, it is one of those baits, one of those techniques. It's a little bit more tricky to do around docks. But find a way to fish your favorite bait, the bait you are most comfortable fishing, around a dock in your home lake. And I 99.9% guarantee you, if you take everything into consideration which we've spoken about so far, you're going to catch fish around docks if you are persistent and you carry on trying. Good. Okay. This little section here is probably not going to please a lot of people, but we're doing it anyway because it needs to be discussed. Dock etiquette. And I want to be very clear on this, guys. I am 100% for fishermen's rights. Okay? 100%. So we need to lay it out so that there's no misunderstanding. The first thing that you need to understand, the docks that you are fishing are privately owned by private people. You do not have the right to go onto those docks for any reason. Okay? Not at all. But the water that is around those docks is not owned by anyone. The federal government, maybe. People cannot tell you that you are not allowed to fish around their docks. There may be a little bit of language in this piece. Okay? Use common sense. You are going to get Karens that come out and give you gas. In the nicest possible way, tell them they have no right to stop you fishing there. Unless those docks are in a private area of the lake and it is signposted that it is private, you can fish there. Now, use your common sense, guys. You don't want to get into shouting matches with people and spoil your day. And the approach that I've often found that works the best is, if you see people on their docks, go and talk to them. Say good morning or good afternoon. Ask them if they've seen other people catch fish around that area. If they give you crap, disregard them. And I mean disregard them. Just blank them, turn your boat away, and go on to the next dock where there's no one. The way the world is going at the moment, if you get into it with somebody on a dock, it's probably going to end up in some other kind of court case or the police getting called. Sadly, that's the way our world seems to be going. So don't get into it with people. But there's a time and place for everything. A clever thing to do if you're fish, particularly on bigger lakes, is to find out where there are some public marinas. In other words, areas where people can hire slips or boat docks. There may be a boat ramp there or whatever. And the reason that I recommend that you do this, other than going there to fish, is if you have bad weather in your forecast, at least you know that it's somewhere that you can run to. Most marinas, or a lot of marinas, have covered docks that you can run to, and you could possibly tie your boat up to if the weather came, and maybe go and get a cup of coffee, or go and talk to the marina manager, or buy some tackle even, and sit the weather out. And you know that you're safe, and you know that it's legal, and it's a good option to have. It's also good to know those type of things, guys. And I know we don't like talking about this kind of stuff, but if there's an emergency, you need to know where you can run to on the lake other than the ramp. If you're down the other end of the lake, for argument's sake, and God forbid something goes wrong and you have to run somewhere because it's an emergency, it's good to know where those public marinas are. If you look at maps of a lake, even on your electronic charts, on your chart plotter, it will usually tell you if marina areas where there are many boat docks, and it's a good fishing area, is a no-go zone or a go zone. And I'm going to leave it simple like that. Most of the marinas that I've been into when I've been fishing in America have had not much of an issue with me going in there and fishing around the docks, as long as you don't upset the people that are there. They pay good money to be there. Don't piss them off. Just be a nice person, be friendly, and what that does is that leaves the door open for every other fisherman that wants to go in there and go and experience the same thing that you've experienced. So just be cool about it, and be friendly to people, and be nice to people. So that's dock etiquette. It's a very important thing. It's often in the news online of people getting into fights with people on docks and whatever, and blah, and it's just really annoying. But the fact of the matter is that dock that's in the water, generally speaking, belongs to somebody. Don't mess with it. Or the boat that's on the boat lift. Don't mess with that either. People will get angry. That's dock etiquette. So you've made it all the way through. That's it. That's docks, guys. If you're unsure about the tackle required for some of the techniques that I've explained for docks, go back to Tackle and Techniques playlist on the Bass Fishing Basics home channel page on YouTube, and you can go and research that for yourself. In this one, of course, we only mentioned the type of lures that you would use to fish the different parts of the docks. So I hope that this has been helpful to you all. I hope that you've enjoyed this different format of video, and we'll see you next time. Who knows what we're going to be doing. Thanks, guys.